The Harris and Trump campaigns are sharing their July fundraising hauls, with the VP shattering records. Her campaign says they've raised $310 million last month. That amount does include donations made when Biden was still the candidate, and the $200 million raised in the first week of Harris's candidacy. The campaign says 94% of it came from donations under $200 and 2/3 from first-time donors. Meanwhile, the Trump campaign says it raised just over $138 million last month, and that includes donations raised in the aftermath of the attempted assassination of former President Donald Trump and during the Republican National Convention. And while the candidates rake in cash, all eyes are on Harris as she gets ready to announce her running mate. Several of her potential VP picks have cleared their schedules. CBS News has confirmed Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro will no longer be attending a previously planned fundraiser in New York. And Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg has changed his schedule for the day. There are also reports Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear has pulled out of previously scheduled events that he had planned. However, Harris's pick will be busy next week. The vice president and her running mate are set to visit 7 battleground states starting Tuesday in Pennsylvania. CBS News campaign reporter Nidia Cavazos has been following the Harris campaign for us. And I know you got the latest. You know exactly who she's picking as VP. No, we would love that. I want to ask you, though, about the vice president's role in the prisoner swap. We saw her overnight greeting the freed Americans returning home. She certainly praised the president for his efforts and his successful efforts in the release. I want to play some sound.
This is just an extraordinary testament to the importance of having a president who understands the power of diplomacy and understands the strength that rests in understanding the significance of diplomacy and strengthening alliances. It's an incredible day. You can see it in the families, in their eyes, and in their cries.
So we know that Harris took part in some crucial meetings leading up to the swap. And this timing couldn't be better, I think, for the Harris campaign. So can we talk a little bit about what the vice president's role was, but also how her campaign is taking advantage of this?
Good morning, Anne-Marie. And so, like you said, we wish we really had the answer here in terms of who Vice President Harris will be picking as a running mate. A lot of attention has been centered on her campaign. She's been launching her own presidential campaign, but at the same time, she has these official White House duties as she is still the Vice President of the United States. And we're seeing this now with the prisoner exchange. She's also in the middle of traveling to key battleground states to strategic locations. And so her traveling on one hand is just a perfect example of how she's juggling between her official duties, but also fulfilling her own presidential campaign duties. We've seen it throughout this entire year that she's managed to make international trips across the U.S., fulfilling these White House duties. And so, for example, when she was abroad and she attended the Munich Security Conference, that's when she had the critical meetings that essentially led to the prisoner swap that we're seeing now. But these official duties were also stuck in between her campaigning across different battleground states in 2024 while she was initially campaigning as a running mate to President Biden. Now she's also, launching her own presidential campaign. And so we're going to continue to see a combination of this, just as we saw it yesterday. Even she was out in Houston campaigning, but she comes back to Washington and she's fulfilling these duties. And she did play a critical part in the prisoner swap.
So let's talk about what everyone else is talking about, which is who could be the vice presidential pick for Harris, her running mate. There's been sort of a flurry of cancellations out there. And so we're trying to read the tea leaves. What can you tell us about these cancellations? What are you hearing?
Well, we know that across social media platforms, this has also become sort of a joke now. People are saying, if I cancel my weekend plans, will people be reading into it? But this is exactly what some of the candidates have been doing. We know that the governor of Pennsylvania, on one hand, had canceled his weekend commitments. He was supposed to appear in a fundraiser over the weekend. We know that Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg, on the other hand, also canceled some of his plans. And this comes down during the same weekend that Harris is down to the last final days and last couple couple of hours before she has to narrow down that list and make her pick. We know that there is a list of contenders that have already met with the vetting team that is also assisting Harris and Harris's team with, the vetting material process. And this includes the governor of Pennsylvania, Minnesota, Illinois, Kentucky, the senator of Arizona, Mark Kelly, and also Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg. So while the campaign has also stressed that we shouldn't necessarily be reading into every single detail, we are analyzing every possible aspect in order to be able to determine who's going to be Vice President Harris's running mate.
All right, Nidia, thank you so much.